looking at last week's lesson, you recall we talked about morality, we talked about what feeds morality, and then we were at the very last part. I think we spent a lot of time last week looking at the four right efforts. Do you recall the four right efforts? The first one is, can anybody help? Okay, it's popping up there. The first one is, no, it's fine, you can pop it up. The first effort is to make sure that we prevent, or we try not to allow unskillful qualities to arise. So when they're unskillful qualities, they often lead to evil. And number two, if the unskillful effort has already arisen, what we need to do is we got to make sure we abandon, we let go of the wrongdoing, of the unskillful effort. Okay, and number three, we focus on skillful qualities. Any things that have not yet arisen, we want it to arise. This would be a good effort. So the first two deals with unskillful or evil efforts or evil intentions, and the third one starts the working on the arising of good effort. If anything that is not yet arisen that is good, we got to try and make sure it arises from our effort. And the fourth one, of course, is to maintain. If any good skillful effort has already arisen, we got to be able to maintain that. We need to be able to have plenty of it and cultivate it more. This is very important to understand in terms of keeping your morality upright. I think we spoke a lot about that last week. And next, I'd like you to consider something here, an old story. This old story is modified, it has changed for you to understand from morality point of view. There's an old grandfather who tells his grandson, he says, "My son, there's a battle between two wolves inside all of us. A black wolf and a white wolf. Do you all understand?" The grandfather is saying, inside us, there's two wolves. It's fighting each other. A black one and a white one. The black wolf, it represents greed, hatred, and wrong views. The white wolf, on the other hand, represents generosity, loving kindness, and discernment. And the grandson thinks for a moment and asks his grandfather, "So grandfather, which wolf wins?" What do you think? Which wolf wins? What do you think is the answer that the grandfather gives to the grandson?
The white one.
The white one. Why is that? Why do you think the grandfather said the white one?
Because I think the generosity is always win over the devil. The heart and the kindness that you provide to other, it could help to defeat the the great.
Okay. So you believe that good always win over evil. Okay. It's a good reason. Anyone else? Before we see what the grandfather will say. No one. Okay. The grandfather replies, what's this? The one you feed. Think about that for a moment. The one you feed. The stronger wolf will win. And the stronger wolf is the one that has the food. So what the grandfather is saying is that you cannot guarantee that the white wolf will win, which means good, generosity, loving kindness, and discernment. You cannot guarantee that the black wolf will win, but it depends on who you feed. Now, over the last 2 weeks, we've been looking at morality, and morality is about purity of conduct. We saw that if morality was a child, what was the parent, or who were the parents, and what was the food? See if you still remember or have learned the lesson well. That's a question for the audience. If morality is a child, who were the parents and what were the food? Does anybody remember?
Mindfulness is dad, awareness is mother, and immeasurables is food.
Okay, thank you very much. That's correct. So in the same way that whoever, in everybody's mind is a black wolf and a white wolf. If we want the white wolf to win, we got to feed the food that will grow morality. And mindfulness and alertness are the two things that need to feed the baby morality, that if you want morality to grow. Okay, so the immeasurables, there are 4 of them: compassion, loving kindness, selfless joy, and equanimity. All right, so that's what we covered last week. And moving forward, PowerPoint person? Yes. Moving forward now, we're going to explore further about how to develop the human being through morality. Remember, this seminar is about understanding ourselves, understanding us as a human machinery. And if we can understand ourselves, we're more likely to be able to determine what's going on inside us. We're more likely to be able to see the white wolf and the black wolf when it acts in our mind. So I hope you understand the example in the using the wolf by the grandfather. Next thing I want to talk to you about is what the current world is talking about a lot these days, about different ethical views of life. Ethical is the same, similar to moral, like it's what's right and wrong. That's what ethic mean, right? In today's world view, there's quite a few people believe that they have different views of looking at life. But if you study their views carefully, everything that they've been talking about, that they are talking about now, is actually what people in India, even in India 2,500 years ago when the Buddha was alive, they were also talking about the same things. And you can break the views into basically 2 extremes, the left and the right views. And the left views and the right views are based on how people see things. And I'm going to give you an overview very quickly about what the left and right views are. There's one view of life that people think that there is people only have one life. This life. After this life, there is nothing else left. This is called the nihilistic view, which is there's a view that says there's nothing left after this life, 0. Okay, and then on the right side of this, people say, well, there could be other views, there could be other lives, but the most important thing is that what's after life, it depends on how each person view. So, I don't want to dig in too deep, so perhaps I won't go too deep into it. I just go into what is the prevalent, or what is the most popular view nowadays for yourself as parents, as people in our society, and also for your children. A lot of people now in the Western society believe that there is no right and wrong based on a standard that society can define. What is right and wrong depends on the view of the person that is seeing and doing. This is called the relativistic view, which means a view that is relative to the person who is seeing and looking out to the world. Okay, so one person says, you cannot tell me that I'm wrong because your view is what is right and wrong is your view, and my view of what is right and wrong is my view. Our views are different and we all have the rights to our views. Does that make sense? So from that point, the thinking frame becomes relativistic, which means changeable. And this is what's happening now in 2025, in the 21st century. A lot of not just children, but adults are also thinking that. You know, people become very sensitive now, and they believe that they have a right to do whatever they need to do because they have a right as a human being, as an individual. That view falls into that perspective. Now, which view did Buddha believe in more? Which one do you think? Did Buddha believe in the nihilistic view, there is no afterlife, or the relativistic view, there is no right or wrong that anybody else, that society can set? The view that the Buddha believed in is neither of those. He actually believed in the middle view. He called it the middle path. He said there is a life after death and there is a right and wrong. Okay? The two extreme views actually divide people, and there are many other different views in between those. And the debate should be left to people who are called philosophers. They think about things and they come out and debate about who's right and who's wrong. But for our sake, we shall reference our life view based on the enlightened views of enlightened society during the Buddha's time. And we still hold that we should have faith that the Buddha's full enlightenment and full understanding of the human mind and the human consciousness is what gives us knowledge and wisdom to be able to navigate through life in a clearer path. All right, so moving on, and the reason why I raised that is because I think, you know, even when we were talking in the last 2 weeks, some parents were saying that, you know, when they were saying it, they were expressing it on behalf of our current society, that an individual have a right to whatever they need to do. So, for example, I give you a topic which sometimes we talk about with teachers. But this is a general topic anyway. For example, women in Western society believe that they have a right to their body, and therefore they have a right to kill or to perform abortion. In other words, kill the baby in the stomach if they believe that that is the right thing for them. Right? And the other half, maybe 50% of the population may not agree with them, but then they argue that the view of 50% of the 50% population does not, whatever they believe is right is not necessarily right for themselves, because it's their body, therefore they have a choice. Does it make sense? But you know, what would Buddha say to such a person claiming that they have a right to actually terminate the abortion? Most of you there in the audience are Buddhists, and even you're online. What do you think the Buddha would say to that?
Abortion.
Anybody have any idea?
Should people sort of raise the question? In the modern view is that abortion and all that really should be up to the person. It's not about someone else deciding, because it's our body. We should be able to decide what we want to do with it. That's the modern argument for abortion. What are your views on that?
Ms. Sharma said
Not your views, but what do you think Buddha would say?
Yeah, Ms. Sharma said that is wrong.
And how is it wrong? How would the Buddha say that it would be wrong, if the Buddha says it's wrong?
When we look into the 10 codes of moral conducts, the do not kill part is wrong.
That's right. Do not kill and do not harm. But the argument from the people who agrees to abortion is that the young life, they don't even think it's life yet. They think that the being cannot have any feeling. So there's no harming. But Buddha says that as long as a being have consciousness, it is able to have feeling and thinking. So there is, in the sutta, the Buddha talk about there's a certain time frame. It's only, I think, after a week of conception, the consciousness start to come into the being already. And once that consciousness sits inside that body, that is a life. And we should not have the right to determine to end a life or to harm a life. That's the Buddha's ethical belief. Okay, so from that point of view, Buddha would not agree with an individual who decided to take that life away, because that life was not created just by one individual. It's actually created by two individuals to start off with. But more important than that, once the life comes into form, even the two individuals do not have a right to actually hurt or kill that being anymore. Okay, so to be able to understand what the Buddha see, we need to appreciate the two-world system which the Buddha spoke about. The Buddha understood that lay people who are in the world, who are busy in trying to develop themselves in the conventional world, which is the world of material, the world of money, the world of people and progress. He called that world the mundane world. And then for those people who are not in that world, who wants to find out and be able to see the answers like the way he can, he asked them to seek spiritual, a higher level of living. He called it the spiritual life. In this world is a different world to the conventional world. This is the spiritual world. He's asking the people who try to transcend, which means to go above the ignorance of people, of the average person living in a lay world. He said, if you want to see what I'm saying, you can see it. You can follow my footpath, but you need to be willing to let go of your views of what normal people hold on to in the world, because they're so busy trying to develop their material progress, which is the life of having a job, having money, having food. They're not able to develop the third eye, which is the mind's eye, to be able to see what he's talking about in terms of consciousness, in terms of life after death and so forth. So there's two worlds that the Buddha talked about, the conventional world and the spiritual world, or the supramundane world, or the mundane and supramundane world. So we need to understand what that Buddha introduced this two-world system just for human being. And then from there, you are able to, you'll be able to understand that if you can't see something just because you read it in Buddha's teaching, you can't understand him. It's because you are looking at it from a mundane or from a worldly point of view. So looking from that point of view, it's hard for you to understand that there is life after death, that there is ghosts, or there is gods, or what the Buddha called devas. Yeah, in the Christian world, they call it the gods. I think what they call them, the demigods or angels. Buddha says you can see them if you want to practice them, but you need to be willing to step away from the worldly life and then try to attain a higher spiritual life. Okay, so from that point of view then, when Buddha divided the world into two, the mundane world and the supramundane world, he also came to define two types of truths, right? Because the reason why people have these different views between the nihilistic view and the relativistic view is because they don't quite understand that there are two types of truths. And he called it a conventional truth, and the other one, absolute truth. Absolute truth and conventional truth are two very, very different truths. Conventional truth are truths that are in the world, that are correct for people living in the material world. Okay, and absolute truth are truths that is not changeable. You cannot change absolute truth. Even if you go 1,000 years, 3,000 years afterward, even 1,000,000 years, you cannot change that truth. So for people in the world, the truth they often see through their eyes and through their mind's eyes, through the physical eyes and through their mind's eye, are what Buddha called conventional truth. Can somebody in the audience help me and try to explain what the Buddha is talking about here? Can you give example of what the Buddha is saying? What are some truths that cannot be changed, and what are some truth? Oh, sorry, by the way, conventional truth are truths that is not fixed, it is changeable. Okay, absolute truth cannot change. I forgot to define clearly what is conventional truth. So can you help me out by looking at the world and tell me what are some truths that people in the world believe are true, but is changeable over time, or even changeable if you look at it from a clearer point of view? And what are some examples of absolute truth?
Like when you're born, you're going through that life state, you would pass away at some point. That is the truth in life.
Which truth is that? Absolute or conventional?
Absolute.
Okay, thank you. That's correct. Yes. Can you give an example of conventional?
Conventional, so it's like material way. So you believe that you're born rich or poor, which is you cannot choose that life. Like, so you had to. Oh, actually, that one is absolute as well.
Not easy, right?
Yeah, that one.
But
I'm
it's
not too sure.
Yeah, it's actually quite easy to see, but there are lots of truths that we take as truth, but we have not trained ourselves to see which one is absolute, which one is conventional. Let me give you an example. When we talk about sunrise in Australia, in Sydney, if I talk about sunrise in Sydney, does that mean everywhere in the world experience sunrise? No, right? So when the sun rises in Sydney, it may not be rising yet in another part of the world. Is that clear? So sunrise is a conventional truth. It is changeable. It depends on where you are on Earth. In fact, if you get out of Earth, completely get out of Earth, let's say you're floating in a space station. You're sitting inside a space station in space. Could we talk about sunrise? I think there is a slide that shows space station. I'm not sure if you know about the space station, but that, American and the Russians share that space station. They go off and work there and try and understand what it's like to live in space. If you're on that space station, can you see you're above the Earth? You're no longer rotating with the Earth on the surface. You're always going to see the sun. There's nothing that's going to block you. So if you're living in a space station, you cannot talk about sunrise or sunset. It's always because you're always going to see the sun. Can you see how conventional truth changes when we change our location? Do you understand what I mean? Another example of conventional truth. A lot of people, when they're living life, and especially when they're young and healthy and they're not sick and they're strong, Death is not something that comes into their mind. They don't think about death. In fact, if you start talking about death, they get a bit upset. They think it's not lucky to speak about death. Right? They think they are forever young. So one of the tricks that marketing or beauty companies, cosmetic companies around the world, what they do is they try to sell that idea to people. They want to sell the idea that, you can stay young by buying their product. So people buy cosmetic product to try and stay young. Is that an absolute truth or a conventional truth? You don't have to answer this question, but I think you're beginning to understand, isn't it? When we are born, we're gonna age. And we're going to grow old. We're gonna get sick and we're gonna die. This is absolute truth. So when we try to fight aging and think that we can stop aging through chemical products, we are lying to ourselves. Okay? However, we all understand, not just I, but we should all understand that some people tend to age slower than others. When I say age slower, I mean appearance age, not age as in minutes and hours and days and years. So some people's physical appearance seems to age slower. And the reason for that is not merely just chemical products that you can buy, but also the amount of the way in which that the person lived their life. If they have less stress, if they have ability to be able to see through and manage their life well, and they have less stress, therefore the effect on their body is slower. The aging effect on their body is slower. All right, and I hope you understand that. I don't want to go any further here other than letting you know that Buddha defined that there are, or say, not say, but make it clear to people that there are two types of truths in the world. Conventional truth, which can be changed, and absolute truth, which cannot be changed. Another example of absolute truth is, if you lack wisdom, you will suffer more in life. Right? So another way of saying that is, if you have more ignorance, you will suffer more in life. This is an absolute truth you cannot change. Right? In the Western world, there's a saying. They say that ignorance is bliss. Ignorance is bliss means the more ignorant you are, the more unwise you are, the more happy you are. Okay? This is far from the truth. This is absolutely not right. Because if you think about life, if you don't know things, you might be happy in the short term. And that short term is also not correct to say, because there are pain in the short term, but the unwise person cannot see it. Okay, so please note that very carefully as we move forward to try and understand more about the, ourselves, the human machinery. We need to look at some of these fundamental definitions and standards before we dig in to understand deeper about ourselves. Now, the next part that we need to understand after understanding there are two types of truths is the two seeds of a deed. You know what a deed is in English? A deed is an action or speech that is born from your thought. So when you speak, it is a deed. And that speech came from having ideas or thinking. Or when you take an action, when you go up and pick up a pen and write. Right now, if you're taking up and writing something onto your book, you are actually performing an action, which is a deed. And that deed originated from your thought. So everything is born from the mind, and it fruition in two forms through the human machinery. It comes in the form of speech, and it comes in the form of bodily action. And that's it. And there are 2 seeds that can form the type of deeds that we take. And this is similar to the example that we start the lesson with, the 2 wolves inside our mind, inside our head. You know, there's a white wolf and there's a bad wolf, depending on what food you feed it. If you feed the black wolf, which means you feed the evil seed, that will allow the black wolf to be stronger. If you feed good seeds, medicinal seeds, seeds that actually bring goodness out, then you make the white wolf stronger. Okay, so these 2 seeds, in the Buddha's language, he called it the wholesome and the unwholesome seed. Okay, so we need to define what these 2 words mean. And I think we defined that last week, or maybe not. Right, now let's look at what is wholesome and unwholesome firstly. So we say that a deed is wholesome or unwholesome, right? Slide person, I think I need to go to the next slide. We consider when we need to consider what is wholesome and what's unwholesome, we need to consider the person doing the deed, which is you, and then we also need to consider other people. All right, so here's the best way to understand what is wholesome and unwholesome. Firstly, you need to understand that every speech and action that you perform have consequences. In other words, it will have effect. It will affect other people as well as it will affect you. In a good way or a bad way, it will affect you. Does it make sense? Then we talk about the effect in terms of harm to make it easy. So if your deed harms you and harm others, so if it harms you, I think the PowerPoint is a bit slow, so I can't speak to the PowerPoint, but it doesn't harm another. Okay, so if your deed harms you but does not harm another, do you think that's a good deed? The answer is no. Your speech and your action should not harm you, even if it doesn't harm another, which is good, but it should not harm you. If it harms you as well, not as well, if it harms you but not others, it's not a good deed. So we say that this is an unwholesome action, an unwholesome deed. Is that clear? Next, if it doesn't harm you, but it harm another, is that a good deed?
No.
No. So we say that it's unwholesome. That's what Buddha said. This would be unwholesome. Okay? The Pali word he used for it is akasula. Akasula. I think if you're Cambodian, you may know this word. Akasol. Akasol, is that right? I think there's a Cambodian word which comes from the Pali. It's the word that says kosol, right? It's actually a Pali word. And next, if the deed harms you and harm another, that is definitely not a good deed, isn't it? So that is a very, very unwholesome. So it's still in the category of unwholesome deed. All right, so the last one is a deed that doesn't harm you and doesn't harm another.
This is wholesome.
That, the Buddha called, is a wholesome deed.
Mr. Pao, Ms. Sharma said it depends on, it depends on how we define harm, physical, mental, or emotional, I think. Some deeds might feel like emotional harm, but are meant to grow you and grow resilience.
Well, harm is in this case both physical as well as mental. And we are going to dig into what Ms. Sharma is wanting to talk about in a minute. But at this point, just keep it simple and basic first, that we intend no harm to ourselves and to others, both physically and mentally. So on the note of Ms. Sharma, it leads into another one, what most people worry about. A lot of parents are worried about, and not just parents, a lot of parents and teachers and adults nowadays are very much worried about what they say to their children or to the students. A lot of people are not able to tell the truth because people know that when you tell other people truths, it harms them. I think that's what Ms. Sharma is talking about. So the question then is an ethical question. When we raise our children or when we teach other people, do we tell them what needs to be told, which is the truth, which could cause harm? And the reason why many people now in the Western society do not speak the truth anymore is because, you know, they reinforce what they call positive affirmation. Be positive, be positive. That's what all you hear people talking about. Let's just be positive. And to be positive mean they're basically saying, hey, you know, don't say things that can harm the other person. And that often means that you can't tell them the truth. For example, if you, in front of you, are speaking to a friend, and that you clearly, that friend clearly lies to you, and you know that friend lied, you know 100% that that friend lied to you. Do you stop your friend and tell them right then and there and say, hey, you are lying to me? Or do you allow that friend to continue and you continue to listen and make your friend believe that whatever they're saying, you believe them? Have you found yourself in this kind of context before? I'm sure many of you have. Because you are afraid to offend a friend by telling them the truth that you know they're lying, you stay quiet. And when you stay quiet like that, which wolf inside you, the black one or the white one that you're feeding? Sorry?
Audience said the black one. The audience said the black one.
The black one, yes. But yet we do it over and over, isn't that right? Many people, there's very little people would actually feed the white wolf at that point. But there are some, even though the percentage is small, there are some who would speak out straight up to the liar. The question is back to about harm. Most people do not tell a liar that they're lying because they're thinking that it's causing them harm, isn't that right? So we need to define harm or the cause of harm more clearly. The one thing that we need to understand here is this. If you, the doer, or not you, but the doer, that can be you, if you are the person who are listening to the liar, and when you decide that you want to tell that truth, you're thinking that you're going to harm the person. But let me ask you again, if you, by not telling the person that you know they're lying, are you causing them more harm? Do you understand what I'm asking you? Say, for example, you have a brother or sister or a friend, a very close friend, who's lying to you right now as they speak to you. Like me, imagine me, I'm your friend, I'm speaking to you, I'm actually lying. I'm actually lying. Yet you actually believe 100% that I'm lying to you. By not saying anything to me, you are hoping that I am not going to be harmed mentally by your speech. But now I'm asking you, by staying quiet, are you causing me more harm than actually telling me what I need to hear that I'm lying?
Mrs. Hui said causes more harm.
Sorry?
Mrs. Hui said it causes more harm.
How? How so? You can pass the microphone to her. I can hear very well through the microphone.
I think it's causing more harm because like when you do, example, like you do one mistake, yeah, that is just one mistake is like less. And then when you do again and again, it become like your mistake become like stronger. So that's why it's more harm. Because if the
Yes.
people lie and then you not stop them, they will think that they are what they say is true. Then they keep saying and saying again and again, and then improve lying more.
Yes, that's right. That's right. And the problem is, what you identified is correct. You see, they keep doing more, and then wherever they go, their morality is poor. So wherever they go, they're not going to be trusted by people. Their reputation is not going to be good in the long term. And in the short term, if there are more people than you, there are other people listening, they may also stay quiet, but their view of that person is not good. They don't believe in that person. Their trust is falling about that person. So they're already actually harming themselves. So by staying quiet and trying to give them a positive affirmation by pretending to listen and believe them, you're actually harming them more. So one thing that we have to understand is this. If we go back to wholesome and unwholesome that we discussed about earlier, the intention was from the doer. Now, if the other person decide to have pain because of their view, the way they view what you say or what you do to help them, and what you do to help them is actually wholesome. You know the intention, your intention is good for you and for them in the short term and for the long term, which means you're not harming both you and another. As long as your intention is true and honest, which means you're actually giving them medicine. Don't worry about it if the other person is experiencing harm because of their own wrong view. Is that clear? That is an option they have for themselves. You cannot control someone else's mind. All you can do is control your own speech and your own action. And if you intend to not harm you and another, you are intending to give them medicine. So don't worry about the harm that the wrongdoer experiences, whether it's physical or mentally. Is that clear? And as Buddha always taught, he said one very simple line: suffering follows the fool like the shadow that never leaves. So if you don't say the truth to them, if you don't have a wholesome action and speech to them at that moment in time, they will continue to hurt themselves. Their wrongdoing will follow them like the shadow that never leaves. So you are actually acting out of compassion and loving kindness when you choose to tell them the right thing at that moment in time. Is that clear? And I hope that addresses Ms. Sharma's intention to put forward the concept of pain. In fact, it is very hard to avoid another person inflict or causing pain to themselves based on what they see and hear if their view is not correct. You know that if you tell that friend of yours who's lying at that moment in time, if they get upset at that moment and have the ability to quickly see that you are actually trying to help them out right now and for the future, they may change their view. They have that option. They have the option to change their hearts and understand that their wrongdoing has been caught. Then they have a chance to actually get better. This is the same way as a sick person. You know, if a person goes to the hospital and they know they're sick, and a doctor is going to prescribe them some medicine or some cure. For example, do you know what frostbite is? Frostbite is when you go to the snowy area and your foot or your hand has been in the cold too long and blood stopped flowing, and then it's become all blue and black already. That's called frostbite. At that point, when you get frostbite, it's too late to save your toes or your finger. Well, if you go to the doctor will say to you that they will have to cut off your toe or your finger. And if the doctor don't tell you that, if you leave it for some time, that black and blue will grow to the whole arm or to the whole leg. You may end up losing a whole leg. Isn't that right? Yeah. So the job of the doctor is to tell the sick patient, the sick person, what they need to hear in order for the long-term benefit, for the short-term and the long-term benefit. But the person who's suffering from the pain of hearing the words of the doctor saying, oh, I have to chop off your finger, or I have to chop off your toe, they don't want to lose their toe, they don't want to lose their finger, so they have pain. They have the pain of clinging onto their body parts. No, the doctor cannot do anything about that. All the doctor can do is that the doctor need to tell the person the truth before they lose the whole leg or the whole arm. Do you understand that? So the pain that is inflicted or caused by the other person onto themselves, you cannot avoid that. That is something that is optional for the other people. But as a white wolf, or what our school call a Dharma warrior, we should always feed our white wolf and bring our Dharma warrior out to act like the doctor, helping that sick person right then and there. So coming to the context of parents nowadays find it very hard to, for example, when you buy your children's iPad or iPhone or computer devices they can play game on. When the children get addicted to games, the parent cannot take away the computer because they worry that the children suffer. The children will express their pain, but the parents are wanting to avoid the children experiencing pain in the short term will do nothing about it. So which wolf, the black wolf or the white wolf, inside the parent, are they feeding themselves? Clearly, when the parent do such thing, the parents are actually feeding the black wolf inside them, isn't it? And by feeding that black wolf, they are also growing the black wolf inside the children. Do you understand? So going back to morality, we can actually come back to morality and say, well, when we are doing things that are not right, that is not wholesome, right? Which means it either hurt us or hurt another, or it hurts the other and not us, or it hurts both of us. When we do things like that, it's actually out of immorality, out of wrong morality. So you need to understand this word, wholesome and unwholesome. Is that clear?
And Mr. Powell, Ms. Sharma said she agrees with you, but it's the hardest thing for people to follow. Only a few can, and 9 out of 10 cases is reasons for conflicts and broken relationships, etc.
Yes, I understand the break of relationship. You know what the answer to avoid, I mean, there are ways in which we can actually feed the white wolf and not break relationship. And that's where the food of morality comes in. Last week, we talked about the 4 food, which is the immeasurables or the sublime virtues. Buddha called it the Brahma Vihara. When you tell the truth, the Buddha says there are 4 conditions which must be met when you tell the truth. Firstly, you got to look at the time. You ask yourself, is this the right time to tell them? Is that clear or not? So you have to choose your time carefully. So you have to study the other person. You have to study the context of the environment at the moment in time. Next, when you tell them, you got to make sure it is the truth, 100% truth. Don't avoid it, because the truth is what sets them free. The truth is what helps cure the sickness of wrongdoing. Third, you need to understand that when you approach the truth, it's got to come from uplifting or loving kindness. Is that clear? And fourth, it's got to come from compassion. Now, how does that work? Firstly, from loving kindness or from uplift, you need to understand that when you are trying to correct them, the person who's doing correcting could be coming from a state of anger and hate. If your heart is full of hate, not full, but it has hate and anger inside, based on the deed that the wrongdoer has done to you, then maybe that's not the right time yet. It's the wrong time to speak, to take action. Does it make sense? Because when your heart is heavy with anger, with greed, with wrong view, it's unlikely you're going to be able to teach them correctly. So you got to choose a time when you're more calm, when you're more cool first. Remember, the Buddha talked about pure morality just like a clear pool. So if your heart is heavy with hate and anger because of you feel that you've been wronged, your pool is not clear, your mind is not clear. So you can compare the pool or the clear water to your mind. If the mind is not clear, which means your mind is muddled up with mud and so on, the water is muddled up with mud and so on, you can't see through your mind. Don't speak or take any action at that moment. Don't tell the truth at that moment. Wait until it's calm. Or if your mind is calm, your mind is clear, like clear water, but the other person is not in the right moment to take the truth, wait for them, wait for the right time for that, to tell that person. After you're having the right time and able to deliver the truth, you now have to think about, okay, you got to think about, okay, I care for this person. I want them to, you're now thinking either from compassion or from loving kindness. From compassion, you can look at how they suffer. One way to see that they're suffering is that you experienced the hate before about their wrongdoing. Because the person acted out like from their black wolf, it made you and made other people, or may make other people, not like them. From this point, you know they're suffering. Does that make sense? So from that, your speech and your action should have compassion and loving kindness, which is the quality to, compassion has the quality to bring them out from suffering. And loving kindness has the ability to make them, give them happiness, no matter what state of mind or heart they're in. Does that make sense, Ms. Sharma? Mrs. Sharma?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, so this is the quality of wisdom. And we need to work on our wisdom by looking at our morality. So our morality, which is mindfulness and alertness, which is a father and mother, we look at our own morality when we try to help a wrongdoer. If we don't use last two talks, qualities of mindfulness and alertness to watch our own morality when we try to help a wrongdoer, we can actually go in there and contaminate everything even more. And this is when everything becomes broken. Relationship, friendship becomes broken. We have to become the higher person. Does it make sense? At the moment when we experience a deed that is from a wrongdoer, from an immoral person. So understand that when people perform immorality, have compassion and loving kindness to them, because they may not mean it due to the lack of wisdom. It is they've been acting out of their ignorance, and that's the reason why it came out that way. So the person who is in the wrong, or the victim, who's not in the wrong, the person who's been wronged, my mistake, or has been victimed, need to step up higher, need to be mindful and alert on your own morality. You activate equanimity, which is one of the 4 immeasurable. Equanimity means the ability to be not shaken. Your mind and your heart should not be shaken at that moment. So if the mind and heart is already shaken, then the time is not there that you need to take the deed to help correct the immoral person. Is that clear? And what I'm saying clear is I'm addressing Mrs. Sharma's input, which is a very valuable input. The reason why most parents and teachers and people, adults in the world, are not able to correct wrongdoers, and especially their children and other children, is because it is difficult to have the right wisdom. It's difficult to deliver the right message in the format, in a way that has been fertilized or fed by compassion, loving kindness, selfless joy, and equanimity. Okay. So I think that's all the time we have left due to time. So today, you know, we looked at a few terms which we're going to use a lot more of in this seminar, in this lesson. Are there any questions so far from today's lesson? Anything that you need more addressing?
No questions from the audience.
Yes.
I can ask one on the phone.
So when you
So-
speak, you need to speak to the microphone, otherwise it's all just a bit mumbly.
One question I want to ask on behalf of parents is how do we apply this with our kids?
Well, I explained that in the last 10 minutes or so. When our children do wrong, we need to know that they're wrong, and we need to plan out to tell them and take actions on their wrong. We know that it's going to hurt them based on the way they view the truth, but we are going to try to deliver the truth in as skillful as possible and in as skillful means as possible. So if you raise an example, better if you give example of, if parents give example where kids take some actions or behavior where it's hard for them to correct. Can you think of an example, parent, where your child have done something wrong and you find it hard to correct them? Give me one example and I will help you. And I'm sure parents, you have plenty.
I'm not a parent, but I hear a lot of parents say this to me, that like the kids, they don't tell them the truth or lie to them.
All right. Well, you need to tell your children that you know that they're lying to you. You need to sit down with them in a time when you're calm, not in a time when you're angry at them, but when your heart is calm, clear, and your mind is clear, just like a clear pool. Have a sit down and talk. Tell them how they have hurt you through the lies that you have caught. Tell them, prove to them, how do you know that it's a lie? Be prepared to give them reason, full reasoning as to how you know that it's a lie. And then from there, show them how the child has hurt himself. One, you know, the child hurt himself by firstly, when they break your trust, isn't that harming them? Can I ask you, any parents out there, when you know your child's lying to you, how does it harm the child? When a child breaks your trust, first time, second time, third time, how do they continue hurting themselves? Well, as a parent, what do you do when you know that your child is beginning to lie? You stop trusting them. When you stop trusting them, you stop giving them privileges. You stop giving them important work, important tasks, which means you're reducing your teaching to them, your good teaching to them. You see, some parents are good. If they're wise, they continue to teach by telling the child the truth about and catching them in a lie. But if you don't tell them that their lie has been caught and then teach them how that hurt them, the child still continue, and you continue growing your hate towards them. That's an example of how the child hurt themselves, because the parent is now beginning to grow hate towards the child. And you might say, no, I don't hate my child. No, that's not true. You know, if you have two children, parents are always asked this question, do you love your children equally? And the answer is no. Parents love the child who have more morality than the child who lack morality. And I don't mean that they love more, but they have more good bias. They have more good attention to the child who actually have more moral value. So by that biasness, the child have already, through lying, the child causes a biasness. You know what biases mean? Causes the parent to swing to one end more than the other. Right? So when the parent like one child more than another, the child who's doing wrong already hurt themselves. And so when the parent take more actions in the future, it's always more biased towards the good child, the one who's more moral. So to avoid hurting that wrong child into the future, the parent need to take the right action and think about long-term effect. I hope that makes sense. I just saw a message popping on my Teams. It's not good to type to me any message. I'm not reading any message. It's better you speak to me. I didn't see that message at all. So it was very quick and it disappeared. Somebody typed me a message. I hope that was clear.
Okay, I'll ask on her behalf. It's Lekana from Cambodia. She asked, sometimes when you tell the truth, you feel that you hurt someone, and so you choose to lie to them, like a white lie, but the intention is good. So what do you think of this opinion?
There is no good intention from lying. There is none. Because the moment you are not telling the truth to the child, they are already on the wrong view that they are intelligent, they are smart, and they can continue doing the wrong. I think Mrs. Hui earlier said that child will continue to lie and lie much bigger. So you have to firstly understand that if not being able to tell the truth to the child, even though you know you hurt them in the short term, you are causing them more long-term pain. So you have to choose. Do you want more long-term pain or do you want to have short-term pain? The same way that the doctor have to tell the person who's got frostbite, I'm going to have to cut off your finger, otherwise you will lose an arm. I'm going to have to cut off your toe, otherwise you're going to have to lose your whole body, your whole leg. And if it eat up to your leg, and if I don't cut off your leg, you might die. It's the same way. There is no, the Buddha says, anybody who is capable to lie, whether it's small white lies or not, has potential to do the biggest evil. So please look into it. There is no good lies. White lies is short-term lies for the person who's speaking, because they don't have the wisdom to know better. So an easy way out of having to think is to produce white lies. And white lies will cause harm. In the same way that the doctor imagine you have frostbite and the doctor says, no, that's okay. Just go home and you'll be all right. When that person with frostbite, from the ice, from the cold snow, when they go away, as they lay down for another one day or so and they end up losing their arms and losing the whole body or maybe even die, is that good from that white lies? There is no such thing as a good white lie. There's no good intention. I hope that is clear. I know it's hard to see what I'm saying, but that's how evil come. If you feed the black wolf, white lies is feeding the black wolf, not the white wolf. If you keep on feeding the black wolf, whether it's small food or big food, the black wolf will get bigger and stronger. Is that clear? And there are two wolves inside each of us, black or white.
So can I ask a question on behalf of a few parents that I've heard, when they speak to me about the parenting? The question that they have is, out of the ways to deliver wholesome speech, the one that they struggle with is they get angry. So even though it's truthful and even though it's beneficial, when they speak to their children, because of the children's attitude, it makes them angry and it becomes hard to deliver the speech out of loving kindness and compassion. Maybe the children is speaking rudely back to them or something like that. So how do they deal with that?
Right. That's what we've been talking about in the last two lessons. You have to improve your morality. Morality is the key. The morality is morality is your ability to perform pure action. And what are the two parents of morality?
Mindfulness, alertness.
Right. You have to practice your mindfulness to see your mind and your heart. And if you see that you have anger and hate, you have to be alert. The mother now has to come in. The father is seeing the problem. The mother, which is inside you, you need to now act and cut your wrongdoing. You gotta, if you're angry at that moment and you can't see that you can stop your anger, you gotta stop the talk to your children at that moment. End it. Come back another time. But if you're gonna continue talking to your children, you gotta have alertness to cut down the anger and then look at your children and understand that, find the compassion for them, and also find the loving kindness. What loving kindness is like, look at the time when they were good, when they were a good child. Find that goodness, then nurture your loving kindness. And then from that angle, you come in. You come in and calm your heart down and see your child as a young person who doesn't know right and wrong for a long time. You helped raise them since a young age. Now they become a bit older. They have a lot of wrong views because you're not the only one teaching them anymore. So from that, use that loving kindness to calm your heart, calm your mind. So mindfulness and alertness, you need to come back and control your morality. Does it make sense? You need to check your morality. So if you are getting in there and arguing and screaming at your child, don't worry about arguing. Even if you're screaming at your child, sometimes I do that myself and I have to zoom back and look at my own state of mind as well. When I go too much, I become quiet. I stop. You have to do the same. It's a practice. It's an ongoing practice to purify your conduct, which is to improve your morality. This is why the last two lessons, and even this lesson, we're still talking about morality. We have not finished yet. The key is to improve your own morality if you want to improve the morality of your child. That's the answer to that, Ms. Lam.
Okay.
Does every parent understand what I mean there? It's very hard to be a parent, right? And it's very hard to teach your own children. It's the hardest. The reason why it's so hard to teach our own children is because we have a lot of greed in there. Because it's my children, I want them to go well. That greed is actually what hurts us. That greed is what actually feeds the black wolf. The moment you activate greed, you're feeding the black wolf. And when the black wolf is stronger than the white wolf when it comes out, it's not likely you can teach your children well. So you have to teach your children from generosity. This is the only thing that fights greed. Do you understand what I'm saying, parents? Okay, because anger comes out from greed. Greed causes you to be angry. And sometimes the greed comes out very quickly and the anger comes out very quickly because your wisdom is low at that point. You're acting more from ignorance. So it's hard to dig in wisdom out, but the best way to bring wisdoms out is to try to activate loving kindness, which is the food for morality. You try to activate loving kindness and compassion for your child. Remember, when you look at your children next time when you're angry, remember when they were young ones. They were just a baby, didn't know right and wrong much. And now your child has come into the world, they got more ability to speak, but still remember some moment when they were just innocent and then trying to teach them again. Because at that moment you locked the black wolf inside you. The black wolf is inside your mind. It's big and dark and ugly. It's coming out of greed, hatred, and delusion. You need to bring that black wolf to the back and bring the white wolf to the front. So remember in the future. But don't be afraid to hurt your children through the truth. It is short-term pain, but you know you're actually giving them medicine for the long-term gain, for the long-term health, for the long-term benefit. And you just have to continue doing it to improve your wisdom. If you don't start, you will never improve your mindfulness and your alertness, which is that nurture morality, which then activate wisdom. You need to start. You need to start stop convincing yourself that white lies are good in the short term. It's not good. No lies are good. I'm not very popular with many people because I choose not to give white lies. So when I speak to people, many people who doesn't have enough patience will probably not want to hang around listening to me more. But in my heart and my mind, I know that I'm trying to bring these people out from suffering. And I try to always improve my skillfulness of my delivery, of my action, of my speech. Does that make sense? It's an ongoing, every day, every month, every year, every minute I'm doing it. You have to do the same, because parents, another name for you as parents are teachers. You are the #1 teachers to your children. It's an ongoing process. Okay, I hope it sounds like I'm repeating, but the reality is that the message, the lesson's been taught, but applying it, putting into practice in life is hard. That's why at Pao Buddha School, you know, we have a lot of training grounds. Training ground is exactly what it is. We need a place, the place that we're here to learn, which is not just school, but actually life. And when we say life, it's a life in a family and a life at school, because we are two training grounds that our children are here most when they're under 18. But as a parent, you cannot stop you cannot be irresponsible and leave that task only to the teachers at school. The school teachers and the home teachers must do the same thing to embody the same form of moral conduct or purity in conduct, so that the children have a consistent learning platform. If the house is doing it and the school's not doing it, it's not going to work. If the school's doing it and the house not doing it, it's not going to work. And I know for a fact that the parents of Pao Buddha School, only about 10% or so are actually holding the ground, doing the teaching wholesomely at home, more wholesome than unwholesome. You're not perfectly going to be able to teach wholesome all the time. Sometimes you will make unwholesomeness. It's a change between the black wolf and the white wolf. But if we practice to feed the white wolf more often, our white wolf will grow stronger. Okay, any other questions?
I think there's a final question.
For parents at home, you can actually, yeah.
Sorry, there is one more question from Ms. Sharma.
Yes.
She said, with white lies, what to do if the person is not ready to listen, but you have to respond in that moment because of the situation?
Do it, respond to it, and try to do it as skillful as you can. Make sure that your heart and mind is not stained, is not blackened by greed and hate. Deliver the truth, even though it hurts them. Do not do any white lies. There is no such thing as white lies. Call it black lies, because it's actually feeding the black wolf. There is no such thing as white lies. This is a false. You're using what the Christian world call it's okay to lie. You know, you're living in Cambodia, right? And yet, strangely enough, you are adopting the language of Western culture. And in the Western culture, I'm not trying to disrespect them, but this is a culture where at the end of the day, they go home and they drink alcohol to make themselves forget the troubles. So when you drink alcohol, Buddha says, one of the 5 precepts is not to take intoxicant. When you drink alcohol, it makes you lazy. It makes your mind ease off and forgetful of your responsibility to be a good human being. So a lot of them start to create small lies because they're too intoxicated by alcohol. And alcohol prevents you from digging into deeper wisdom to come up with the right wholesome deeds to help your children. So these kind of saying, white lies and so forth, should not be something that, people from Buddhist country use. I hope you understand what I mean. I'm not trying to disrespect the Western world, but I hope that, you should not cross boundary to another culture when you have your culture, I mean, maybe perhaps white lies is also happening in other Buddhist countries as well. A lot of people use the term white lies maybe in different ways, but let me just say in short, there is no good in white lies. It's only maybe perhaps you think it's good in the short term because nobody's upset. Well, let me tell you, if the wrongdoer choose to do wrong, they already choose to cause you pain and harm. Why should you worry about them in pain by telling them what is truthful, what is right? Either way, if the wrongdoer is not in pain, you are already in pain. That's why you choose to do the white lies. You have to ask yourself that question as well. Should you continue to be hurt by the wrongdoer, or should you give the right medicine to the wrongdoer and stop using the idea of white lies is good? No white lies is good. It causes a bottle up. It causes an explosion later. I hope that makes more sense. And I know what I'm saying is a bit hard to take for a lot of you parents because some of you may not have had a lot of practice in feeding your white wolf inside you. I encourage you from today to feed the white wolf. It's not the white wolf that's guaranteed to win. It's the wolf that you feed, as the grandfather said. So which wolf are you feeding inside you, the white wolf or the black wolf? A white lie is feeding the black wolf. Okay, if there is no other questions, we shall bring our lesson to a close for today. And I'd like to thank all of you for being here to participate together to become better teachers for our young people, for your children, for other people's children in the school. This is an important act that we're doing. As you see, we're all coming together to try and help inform you, to give you more knowledge so that you can have more power, more ability, more capability to be able to help your children more effectively. At the end of the day, we're all wanting the same thing here. We want to grow young people, empower them in a good way so that they don't get harmed into the future.